All right, so this lesson is all about graphite. We are going to be learning about graphite pencils and shading. We're going to be learning about values, and we're going to be learning about different pencil grades. So you're going to get this set up in your sketchbook. You're going to follow along with this video. When you need to, you're going to pause and complete the assignment or the exercise before moving on. So here's just a variety of materials that you need to have. Number one, you need a pencil sharpener. Number two, you need pencils. So you need at least 3 different types of pencils. And the types of pencils are called pencil grades. So the first pencil grade you are going to need is an H pencil or a 2H. So something that is a little harder, and we're going to learn about what those pencil grades mean. So as you look at a pencil, sometimes it will have the company that made it, but it should almost always have a letter or a number and letter that tells you the grade of the pencil. So this is an H pencil. I also have a 2B pencil, and then I have an ebony pencil. So if you don't have those 3 pencils, you are going to want to look at a list of hard, medium, and soft pencils. And you want 1 hard, 1 medium, and 1 soft. The other thing I have is just a regular pencil. Number 2 pencil we call it, but this grade is actually an HB. And then I have a mechanical pencil, which also has an HB grade lead in it. So besides pencils, besides sharpener, then I also have some erasers. So a kneaded eraser is going to be very helpful. It looks a little bit like clay. It is self-cleaning. That means once you erase something and it gets dirty, the way that you clean it is just by pulling it and folding it back over on itself. I have a regular pink pearl eraser. I have a cap eraser. I like this when I need to get into smaller areas. And then I have, this is just called a gum eraser. Sometimes it's a white vinyl eraser, but I have one. I like this kind. It doesn't leave as many flakes behind. But what do you definitely need for an eraser? I mean, just whatever's on the end of a regular pencil, a pink pearl is fine. So graphite practice. What we're going to do is we're going to start off with just your 2B pencil. So your 2B pencil, like I've started to talk about, is a grade of pencil that is considered a medium hardness. So the thing we're going to talk about with graphite and shading is the amount of pressure you apply. So the amount of pressure you apply is different than the hardness or softness of the pencil. So one of the most important things to know about graphite is that each pencil has a grade. And this grade, like I said, refers to the hard or softness of the lead. So graphite is not actually made of lead. It's kind of a misnomer. It is a mineral made out of carbon, and it is fairly soft in its natural state. You can go out and find it. Now, what pencil manufacturers do is they take graphite from the earth, and they will mix it with different amounts of clay and stick it together in this lead that goes inside of your pencil. So when we think about a pencil, it is a graphite lead encased by wood. And that just makes it easier to handle. So each pencil has a grade. We're going to start with your 2B pencil. So what we need to realize is that even though a pencil is something we use to write with, we're going to use it as a drawing instrument. So using it as a drawing instrument, we're going to use some different techniques than when we write with it. So you might write with a pencil something like this or like this. You probably don't write with a pencil like this. This is something you would use more for drawing. So the pressure is really important that you use with a pencil. So if we start off, and what I want you to do is go ahead and write 2B. If I start off, I'm going to press as hard as I possibly can right here. And then I'm going to gradually ease up, ease up, ease up, ease up till it's like, actually I had to change my grip there in order to get really, really light. So this is showing me the range of my pencil, and I'm actually really interested in that you see this because the area right here that I pressed really hard is showing up as shinier than the rest of it. So that's actually something we want to do, is that when we apply pressure, we don't want to apply so much pressure that we actually make the graphite shiny and that we indent the paper. So that's just something to keep in mind, that you don't want to press so hard that you're indenting the paper. It just makes it so that it's just a little bit more difficult to see your drawing. So the first thing we're going to do is a flat value scale. So a flat value scale, we have done these, or if you haven't done it, okay, here's our first time. We're going to make a 6-box flat value scale that goes from very light to black. So go ahead and get your ruler. If you don't have your ruler, pause it, come on back. And since it's 6 boxes, I'm just going to use my ruler and I'm going to make a 6-inch line. These could be 1-inch tall. They don't have to be perfectly 1-inch tall, but I'm going to make 1-inch tall. And then, so this graphite, learning how to use your pencil differently than you've used it in the past, or using it in a more sophisticated manner, really relies on our knowing about value. So that's why we are doing a flat value scale. Now, a flat value scale means that I can see a different value stepped up each time that I move to the right. So I'm going to label these very light, medium light. So these are how I'm describing the value. It's not the pressure. The pressure we use in combination. So I think that starts to get confusing for people. Black. Now we're not going to get all the way to black, but we're going to, try to get as close as we can. So here's one of my tricks. We are doing smooth pencil shading here. Smooth pencil shading. And you're going to notice maybe that I don't have a blending stump. I don't have a piece of paper towel, and I'm not going to use my finger to smudge. So the goal here is to shade the boxes with smooth, flat values that match what it says underneath, using only my 2B pencil and the pencil point. And I am not going to smear or smudge. I am going to use many layers. So this is a concept we use in oil pastels. This is a concept we use in colored pencil. So the first thing I'm going to do actually is I'm going to start at my very light. This is going to be the lightest I can possibly use or make with this pencil without having pencil lines, so it is difficult. One of my tricks is if my pencil has a very sharp point, I actually will just color in an area till it is a little bit more rounded. So I don't want a perfectly sharp pencil point. I want it to be a little dull. The other thing is I am going to take my pencil and I'm going to grip it a little bit farther out. I'm not going to grip it right here. So it's going to be pretty loose in my hand. The other thing it's important to note, and it's really hard to see from this angle, is that I am not like laying my pencil on the side and doing that. This is smooth pencil tip shading. So the angle of my pencil is going to be more like this. So before you actually color in this area, what I suggest is just go right next to that area and try to get the lightest value you can You're just going to barely scrape the pencil onto the paper. So that's what I'm actually doing. I'm going to fill this area. I'm using small circles or ovals, and I'm going to make this just as light as I possibly can without it being white. And I want it to be smooth and even across the entire box because that is a flat value. So I get about halfway through, I can see some lines, that's okay. I'm going to rotate my paper a little bit and I'm going to start going from a different angle because I'm avoiding those pencil lines. And you're going to fill up the whole box with one single light value. All right, so once I do that, then I'm going to move to the medium light. So the medium light actually start in the same manner. I am going to start with a really light layer. I'm probably going to go across the entire box. So just be careful when you get a larger area. Some people tend to do like really broad strokes across it, and that's not going to be helpful for you because it's going to leave behind pencil lines. So I'm actually going to try to zoom in here to see, hopefully, if you can, there we go, we can see the quality of that shading. So the medium light, I'm going to use probably about 2 layers. See, as I started this second time back, I started to make larger loops and it started to make some lines. I'm holding my pencil very far back. So again, I am trying to get this as smooth as possible without smudging it. I'm going to go all the way up to the edges and I'm making it a nice flat value. So I have just started to add a second layer now in a different direction. I don't know if you can see how far I'm holding my pencil back. I have a loose grip. I am using the pencil point. I'm not laying it on the paper because that will also smudge it. So as I get my second layer on here, what I am looking for is, are there any other areas that are darker than others? And yes, there is, right up here. So that means I am going to shade around that area to make the rest of it just as dark. I still want to be in a light value. So as I work here, I am going to be increasing the number of layers. So as I move to the right, let's say I'm going to start medium. Here's medium. You do want to fill the whole box. I'm trying to save some time. Here's a second layer. Okay, and now a third layer. So I'm not pressing any harder, I'm adding more layers. Get all the way up to the edges. When I get to medium dark, I'm going to do like 4 or 5 layers. So eventually, I'm going to kind of switch out here, zoom it. Eventually, I am going to color in each one of those so they're one step darker, 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 darker. The very last one that says black, I still do not want you to just press as hard as you possibly can. This is different. The technique I'm asking you to do is different. So for black, you're going to need 6 or 7 layers. I know that seems like a lot, but we're learning a new technique. We're kind of learning how to advance our skills. Okay, here's my second layer. I'm going to kind of fast forward a little bit, try to get this built up. So I am getting this as dark as I possibly can without pressing really hard at the end here. So I have about 4 layers on. What I'm now going to do is I'm now going to put my pencil up on the tip or the point. I want to make sure that I'm not pressing in really hard and indenting the paper. But I am now kind of adding these final layers. And what these final layers do is fill in all of those pockets of white or white paper. I call them pockets of white paper, because we are getting the graphite down into kind of the grooves of the paper. So once I get this as many layers as I possibly can, the other thing I'm doing is not only am I using the point of the pencil, I'm kind of rotating it so that I am actually catching the sharpest part of the pencil. So I am going to fill that whole box up, but there is a difference. And maybe if I shine this light over here, there's a difference between pressing as hard as I possibly can and mashing the paper in and using many layers. So you need to use layers. All right, so the next step in this part before we take a break and look at more than one pencil grade is a transitional value scale. So on this one, we are going to do that same a 6-inch box, but you don't need to make it quite as tall. Let's stick with like an inch, or sorry, a 1/2 inch. So a 1/2 inch, oops. I colored inside there. So now the nice thing about this eraser is that you can use it like a traditional eraser, but let's say if there's just one area you need to lighten, you can mold it and then you can dab it in the area that you need to lighten. So this can easily, any of your erasers could become smudging tools if you're not careful with them. So be careful on that. So this one's going to be transitional value scale. And what this is going to do is it is going to mimic the values that you see up here, but it is going to fade from one value to the next. So I'm going to kind of bring you over to this worksheet right here. So very light, medium, medium dark, dark, and then black. But in between those values here, there is no band or stopping. So to make transitions, we're going to work with a layered approach again. I'm actually going to start in the dark side over here. And I'm going to go with one direction, just up and down these ovals. And as I carry it over to the left, I am going to gradually ease up my pressure. Now, remember, I'm going to be following these, so there will be more layers over here, but right now it's just starting at that lighter value because there's only one layer. So as I ease up on pressure, eventually this will fade to the very light over here. So that is my first layer. My second layer, and this actually, you should have a pretty even fading. But my second layer, I'm actually going to switch directions. So I don't like to do just a straight, because what happens here, what happens a lot is when people do this, and then they do this, and then they do this, and then they do this, we get these bands where there is some overlapping of those layers. So I actually don't like to go and shade like that. Instead, the second layer, I'm changing directions. I'm going to shade at an angle. So already I've gotten darker in my dark area, and I'm going to carry this layer down, 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 down. Again, kind of speeding up. Okay, the third layer, I'm going to go with the opposite direction of that angle. So each time that I add a new layer, I'm switching directions. I'm using a very light touch with my pressure. I'm still using the point of the pencil. And I am avoiding pencil lines. So I don't want to see individual pencil lines. Now this whole time I've not had to sharpen my pencil. This pencil should not dull that quickly. It is kind of a medium pressure, we call it, but So I'm going to continue in this manner till I have this part as dark as I possibly can make it that matches that. And I'm thinking about how far that goes. Then I'm going to have just a few less layers, and where it starts a few less layers, I can't exactly tell. That's why this is called transitional. It is very gradual changing. Notice how I'm kind of touching up the edges too. All right, here I'm still getting into these corners and these pockets. This is probably one of my final layers on the darkest area. So you should be able to add these layers to make it fade. Now, as I look here, I see this area right here is a little lighter. So there are times I'm just going to go and shade in certain areas. This is a little lighter here to make it even, an even value across. And yet it fades. And again, it's going to follow this. So I'll come back and finish that up and kind of show you. But if you get that started, that'll be wonderful. The next step in this is to use all of your value or all of your hardnesses of pencil, your pencil grades, and we'll do more in the next video.